pretend that it's Sunday and that we're giving God his due. Because for me, it is like Sunday. This is my day off. Therefore, it is like my personal Sabbath. And to yet again quote Mark 2, verse 7, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So, with that being said, Sunday edition didn't happen yesterday because of the time change, and it took an hour out of my day that I had expected to apply to God Our Live. Sometimes life can be that way, but it's okay. Now we left off with Acts 20, where Paul was talking about how he was going to be gone, basically. Not necessarily dead shortly, but he told his buddies, disciples, that they would not see his face again. Because he was going to Jerusalem to preach, to spread the word. And as such, it was a very bold, brave thing to do, Jerusalem being the capital of Judaism and Christianity not being something that the Jewish people tolerated at that time. Now, today, I'd like to think that it's mutual, that we tolerate, we accept, beyond tolerance. Tolerance is you just put up with it, you accept it because there's nothing you can do about it. You don't have to like it, you tolerate it. But to accept means that you wouldn't change it even if you could. So here in America, we talk about being more tolerant. Well, we're tolerant. We've got tolerance in spades, but it's acceptance that we lack in a lot of things. And I'm not referring to anything in particular. Hey, good morning, J Mobile. But then at the time, the Acts, the book of Acts, the Jewish folk were not tolerant of the Christian folk. And, well, I mean, that's why Christ was crucified. They could not tolerate that, nor could Caesar and thus Pilate, or Caiaphas, the Jewish high priest. And that's why they chose to kill a man who had done no wrong, no sin in his entire life, and let a murderer go free. Barabbas, if you don't know who I'm referring to. If you're unfamiliar with God Our Live or God Our in general, it is, I always refer to King James Version. It's the language I speak, English, and it's the closest thing to the Greek Aramaic, uh, Hebrew, and even some other very obscure languages that no longer exist. Uh, Probably some Phoenician and so on and so on. Uh, so I guess Acts 21 is where we are. And let's see, it's not a very long chapter, it's only 40 verses. And it's broken into little small sections, so that's going to make it perfect for discussion. And I do invite, encourage, and anybody to chat their opinions on the scripture as it's being presented. Uh, because I'm just a guy and I'm just reading from my religion's tome and trying to make sense of it as I have been for the last 43 years. So, without further ado, verse 1. And it came to pass that after we were gotten from them and had launched, we came with a straight course unto Cous, and the day following unto Rhodes, and from thence unto Patara, and finding a ship sailing over unto Phoenicia, we went aboard and set forth. Hey, everybody, good morning. That's a great question, King. Um, I'd like to think that is for the chat group here. And by the way, hello, Strawberry Tea, Life with Red, Kevin, everybody. It's good to have y'all here. I most certainly believe and follow Jesus Christ. And after the chapter, if you'd like to know why and how I'm able to do that so confidently, I'm happy to share my testimony. Because I was at some point borderline agnostic or Christian in the sense that most Jews that I know are Jewish, like they're born into it, therefore they're Jewish. They don't necessarily follow all the, rules and such, but here in Lower Alabama, we don't have a lot of Jewish people. It's just the way it is. In fact, we don't have a lot of non-Christians. That doesn't mean we have any shortage of sinners. Everybody's a sinner. But we also don't have any shortage of crime or anything else. Just because we have pretty much one religion doesn't mean that you don't see the same things you see everywhere else. Uh, so, in this intro, they mention Rhodes, which Rhodes, as far as I know, still stands today. And is remarkable in the sense that once stood the Colossus of Rhodes, which is kind of like the naked male version of the Statue of Liberty. I know that's not what it represented, but it was a crowned man, not like Lady Liberty, but it's also a naked man and considered one of the seven wonders of the ancient world. Uh, Very much like if you were in a Game of Thrones, the Titan of Bravos, actually, now that I think about it. In any case, let's move along to caption or module entitled Tyre, Tyre. Now, when we had discovered Cyprus, we left it on the left hand. And there's something significant about left on the left hand. Or I guess we could say we departed it on the port side, but never mind that. Uh, I've often referenced left and right handedness and uh, how Jesus will separate the goats from the sheep on the right, goats on the left. Sheep are the good, the goats are the evil. Uh, Left has always been the opposite of good or right. So, right could be an antonym of wrong or left. A little etymology side note there. But continue on, and landed at Tyre, for there the ship was to unlade her burden. And finding disciples who had tarried there 7 days, who said to Paul through the Spirit that he should not go up to Jerusalem. We were just talking about that in chapter 20. They did not, they knew it was not going to go good for Paul. He had a lot of luck uh, escaping capture in all these other places he visited, Ephesus and Corinth, I believe, and Galatia, and all these places that we later see books of the Bible that are basically letters from prison written by Paul. Anyway, and when we had accomplished those days, we departed and went our way, and they all brought us on our way with wives and children, till we were out of the city, and we kneeled down on the shore and prayed. And when we had taken our leave of one of another, we took ship, and they returned home again. And when we had finished our course from Tyre, we came to Ptolemais, and saluted the brethren, and abode with them one day. And could be wondering who the brethren are, but brethren, as you often see in the Christian community, we refer to each other as brothers and sisters, which puzzles some non-Christians. They'll say they're not related to you. Why do you call each other brother and sister? And well, that's what Jesus called us. Uh, as you have done to the least of my brethren, so you have done to me. You know, you fed me when I was hungry. You gave me water when I was thirsty. You visited me when I was in prison. Jesus, you're never in prison. None of this. Yes, to the least of my brethren, so you have done to me. Not to deviate too much again. So I'm assuming these brethren are just Christians, um, and abode with them one day. And that's all there is to the city of Tyre at this point. Uh, they move on to Caesarea, which is obviously named after Caesar. Which Caesar, I don't know. And the next day, that were Paul's company departed and came into Caesarea, and we entered into the house of Philip the evangelist, which was one of the 7, and abode with him. And the same man had 4 daughters, virgins, which did prophesy. I'm not sure what the correlation is between the virginity and the prophesying, but virginity is a sacred concept in Christianity, which I can't name any virgins, but I guess a man would be very proud of his daughters if they were virgins. Uh, and it would also give them more credibility as prophets, presumably. Just, just mine, brainstorming here, deciphering, and discerning if I can. And as we tarried there many days, there came down from Judea a certain prophet named Agabus. And when he was coming to us, he took Paul's girdle and bound his own hands and feet, and said, Thus saith the Holy Ghost, so shall the Jews at Jerusalem bind the man that owneth this girdle, and shall deliver him into the hands of the Gentiles. And when we heard these things, both we and they of that place besought him not to go up to Jerusalem. Then Paul answered, What mean ye to weep and to break mine heart? For I am ready not to be bound only, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Jesus. And when he would not be persuaded, we ceased, saying, The will of the Lord be done. That's great to hear, King. Um, oh, by the way, hello, SLF. I don't mean to leave anybody out or anything like that. Got our formula, if you will, and I know I'm using air quotes way too much, but the idea is a little bit of scripture, a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of debate, discussion, however you want to look at it. Because I welcome opposing viewpoints. I welcome corrections above all. As I'm not going to give the quote. I'm bad about quoting. Which, if you follow the God Hour Shorts, you get 1 or 3 every day. Paul in Jerusalem. We're already at verse 17. And when we were come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. Again, probably just meaning the Christian community. And the day following, Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present. I can't tell you much about James. Really, I can't tell you much more than his name. I know there's something very significant about him, but I'm not a trained preacher or pastor or even public speaker, so I'll leave that to wiser men than myself. Verse 19, and when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things God had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law. And they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. What is it, therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. Do therefore this that we say to thee. We have 4 men which have a vow in them. Them take, and purify thyself with them, and be at charges with them, that they may shave their heads. Something important about that. I'll get to that in a second. And all may know that those things, whereof they were informed concerning thee, are nothing, but that thou thyself also walkest orderly, and keepest the law. Now, shaving the heads, that was depending on the particular flavor of Jew, if you will, maybe a bad choice of words, but there were certain sects that believed in keeping their heads shorn, shaven, if you will. Like you see the monks do in a lot of things, videos, movies, and so on and so on. In fact, John the Baptist was a Nazarite, not a Nazarene, not as in somebody that was from Nazareth, but a Nazarite, which was a type of Jew that did not shave their head. They believed in growing their hair long, similar to Samson, but it didn't give them magical powers or anything like that, superhuman strength like Samson had. Um, so John is often depicted as a long-haired, rough-looking guy. Uh, Almost looks like an unhoused person, to try to be a little politically correct. I don't usually care about stuff like that. Anyway, verse 25. As touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing, save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idols, and from blood, and from strangled, and from fornication. Seems like they're doing okay, as far as keeping sin to a minimum. Uh, but they don't know Christ. Well, these are Gentiles, so at least they're not worshiping false idols and doing blood sacrifice and fornicating like folks of Sodom and Gomorrah were just going nuts with. No pun intended. Verse 26. Then Paul took the men, and the next day, purifying himself with them, entered into the temple to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification, until that an offering should be offered for every one of them. Okay, that's the King James dry, way of droning on that I often reference. So many words to say something so potentially succinct. Next caption, an uproar. And when 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people and laid hands on him, crying out, Men of Israel, help. This is the man that teacheth all men everywhere against the people and the law and this place, and further brought Greeks also into the temple, and hath polluted this holy place. I mean, you see what's happening here. They seized him. They accused him of all of this stuff. Uh, verse 29. For they had seen before with him in the city Trophimus, an Ephesian, whom they supposed that Paul had brought into the temple. I mean, they didn't have like CCTV footage and stuff to look at, so pretty much somebody's word was as good as evidence in those days. Uh, verse 30. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. And as they went about to kill him, tidings came unto the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down unto them. And when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left beating of Paul. Now that's a weird phrasing for modern English. I believe it just means that they stopped the beating of Paul. Verse 33. Then the chief captain came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains, and demanded who he was and what he had done. And some cried one thing, some another among the multitude. And when he could not know the certainty for the tumult, he commanded him to be carried into the castle. And when he came upon the stairs, so it was that he was borne of the soldiers for the violence of the people. For the multitude of the people followed after, crying, "Away with him." Paul's defense caption. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, "May I speak unto thee?" Who said, "Canst thou speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian which before these days madest an uproar and leddest out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers?" Now, Paul, if you're not familiar, is also formerly known as Saul, who was responsible for capturing Christians. I mean, sweet irony indeed. And that's, the story of on the road to Damascus and all that stuff is where Paul became Christian, and not only that, but one of the most significant Christians in history. But Paul said, "I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city." Mean, I'm pretty sure means average, like median, if you remember that from elementary school arithmetic and such, but a no plain old city, uh, not aggressive city, but I could be wrong. To continue on, "And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people." And when he had given him license, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned with the hand unto the people. And when there was made a great silence, he spake unto them in the Hebrew tongue, saying, and that's exactly where the chapter ends. In the middle of that sentence, in the Hebrew tongue, comma, saying, comma, end a chapter. And I don't get that, but I mean, I get them want to separate his speech into one chapter by itself, but, and this is just the critic in me, I guess. It's quite a cliffhanger, I guess, and I'm not going to go on reading to the next chapter unless anybody wants to hear more King James Version. Um, I mean, seriously, I'm pretty curious myself. Like, why was it broken down like that? Why wasn't just it put into the same chapter or in the chapter at the end of the speech? I guess, see, the next chapter is only 30 verses. We've had chapters in the Bible with more than 60, 70 verses. I just don't know the answers to some of these questions, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Part of it. I mean, I suppose that's a very minor thing compared to all the other great questions we have in life, like what's the meaning of it? And, is there an afterlife? Is there a God? All those questions, I've got an answer I'm comfortable with. Uh, there is indeed meaning in life, and that meaning varies from person to person. Uh, and there's definitely an afterlife, and there's definitely a creator. Um, Now, I struggled for the longest with the concept of a mortal God, to say Jesus. That when I was more of a follower of science, I just could not, come to terms with that. So I was blessed with a very serious car accident that A, clinically killed me for quite a while, B, left me in a coma, C, left me crippled or in a wheelchair for a few years. Not only that, but with my jaws wired together for 6 months, uh, and so on and so on. Broken, almost every bone in the body broken, one of each at least. um, but I was restored to nearly perfect health. I've still got a crooked nose from the total facial reconstruction I underwent, which didn't do too bad. I mean, I'm still ugly as I ever was, but you know, very few people look at it and say that is total plastic surgery. Well, it is. I mean, the surgeon did a fantastic job. I've got photos of my face in the before that I'm not going to share. Indeed, a nurse shared those photos while I was unconscious. And sure, that's grounds for a lawsuit. But I don't think that that's the right approach. Forgive it. And I think it actually strengthens the Christian cause. It just gives credibility to the powers that both medicine and God can give you. The grace he can show and the miracles he can wrought. In any case, that completes the chapter in the scripture part of God Hour. As I mentioned, I'm on my day off, which is basically my Sabbath day. Because, like almost every business in America, we're shorthanded. Not because of the deportations and stuff, it's just because there's, frankly, very little work ethic in I don't want to say young people, because some young people show it, but in the general population, there's very little work ethic. And you can easily sign up and get approved for disability and food stamps and all that stuff, and free or cheap housing, and to the point where being required to work is not really a thing for a lot of people, myself included. I mean, I was put on disability. Well, I pursued and was granted disability in short order for many years. But God be good, he restored me to almost better health, probably better health than even before the accident. And as such, I went back to work uh, and got rid of my welfare, food stamps and such, because I didn't need them anymore. Feel much better to uh, earn what I get. I do. I am today. Uh, Jay Mobile is asking if I read on a tablet. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Um, I like this particular Bible app. I don't know if I want to endorse it. Uh, but I like being able to swap between King James to NLT and ESV and some of the other ones just to just see what they're saying and see the differences. And sometimes the differences are just like crazy different. And I'm like, let's take a peek at NLT. Uh, Looking at just this same page, just glancing at it, it's like, this is a different book. This is not even the same stuff. All the captions are different. I mean, uh, I just don't care for all of that. On the other hand, for somebody that's not familiar with or has an appreciation for ancient literature, biblical or not, maybe they don't have a strong reading comprehension. NLT may be the book for them. I kind of say that with a shiver down my spine because I feel it's misleading. Right there at the end of Revelations, the end of the Bible, it says, you know, anybody who take away or adds to this uh, is worst, the worst of the worst, worse than a non-believer. And there are a few things that can qualify you as the worst. Like there's the unforgivable sin, the one and only unforgivable sin, which is not just blasphemy, but blasphemy of the against the Holy Spirit or Holy Ghost, which is to say, overt, intentional denial and decrying of God, i.e., atheism. Uh, I mean, we can say, or we can theorize that some of the really bad people in history, let's say Hitler, Genghis Khan, maybe, many others, but those are some good examples. We could even say Epstein or Judas, for that matter. Uh, we can't say that they are in hell. We pretty much surmise that most of them probably in hell. You make a career out of exterminating the Jewish people, you're probably going to wind up in hell. But that's not an unforgivable sin. You know, we're not able to judge people like that. We do, but our judgment is irrelevant. We can judge the flesh, but we cannot judge the spirit. Only God can do that. I do not play Roblox. Uh, why is because I might get sucked into it and uh, hooked on it. When I was recovering and confined to a wheelchair, I developed a really serious World of Warcraft addiction. And put more hours into that than I would a full-time job. But to be fair, I'd had really nothing else to do. My jaws were wired together, and I was in a chair and in a lot of pain. So went ahead and got hooked on painkillers and World of Warcraft. Spent those years stoned and ranked very highly on the leaderboards in Warcraft. Uh, Thankfully, I've gotten away from both of those things. And this is my biggest addiction right now. That and this, which is not pot, it's just nicotine. I do not, at this moment, have a pet. And I need to get one. I had a parrot that I loved very dearly. Aaron, I'll give you a little life history of me. I was an only child. Am an only child. My father died quickly and with little to no warning on the other side of the country. I had no time to go even visit or even talk to him on the phone, really. I tried to, but he was so drugged up, it didn't make any sense. And my mother grew terminal, and she passed away shortly after my father, along with two uncles and an aunt, uh, and a cousin or two along the way, and pretty much everybody I knew, or all my family, was gone, which was tough, sure. So I needed a pet. I needed something that needed me. And that's where I got Sonny. This is actually a nickname. His real name was Domingo, which is Spanish for Sunday. Which is why I called him Sonny. Uh, yeah, if you haven't had one of these things, don't get one. You will get so hooked if you're like me. Maybe it's just my addictive personality. But see, I didn't even hit the nicotine. I'm hitting the coffee again. That's how bad these things are. They take precedence over nicotine. If it were cheaper to drink these all day, I wouldn't even smoke, probably. I mean, even though they're 2 for $6, and I get a bit of a discount where I work, I'm still spending a fortune on these damn things. Much less than I'm spending on nicotine, cigarettes, and vape juice. And then I'm sure a lot of people will criticize for smoking on camera, vaping on camera, whatever, in a religious setting, but I'm not proud that I'm a smoker, but neither am I going to portray myself as someone that I'm not. If someone were to dig around my background and go, whoa, 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 guess what? We got some dirt on Rob. Yeah, not only does he commit the horrible, horrible sin of using tobacco and nicotine products, he also got hooked on painkillers. Did you know about that? In his younger years, he would tried every hallucinogen on the planet, just about. Smoked so much weed, you'd probably have to hire a barge just to carry it all. I don't smoke pot anymore, but not because I intentionally don't try to. It's because I don't want to. I outgrew it, so to speak. Same thing with alcohol. I'll drink a beer from time to time, maybe 2 or 3 times a year, and maybe if I'm really, really feeling wild, it'll be 3 beers, generally two. Two good stout, dark, syrupy, thick uh, ale, stout ale, something like an IPA, uh, but not pale. mm, craft beer generally, something good, something worth $6 or $7 a beer. Anyway, so what else is on people's minds? Um, I mentioned in the topic or description rather uh, that I wanted to touch on a few little uh, controversial subjects. Probably immediately thinking Israel and Iran. Mm, not really. I mean, I could opine on some of that stuff, but the way I see it is all of this is all just already been foretold. It's just coming to fruition. I can't stop it or alter it any more than I can alter anything that God has told us is going to happen. God/Jesus. And I know as a non-Christian that can be kind of confusing, is that we have this Trinity, yet we're a monotheist religion. And I would just say they are 3 facets of the same diamond. Uh, and I'd be happy to elaborate if someone is curious. Because the mission, if you will, for God Hour is not to make content for Christians only. That doesn't help Christianity to just be our own little closed off isolationist group of people that pat each other on the back on Sundays and then go out and sleep with each other's wives all week. I don't believe that makes Christianity look good. Of course, they all deny it happens, but the people that we should be listening to are the agnostics or the followers of other faiths, and try to understand where they're coming from. Don't beat them over the head with a Bible, so to speak. Uh, Lead by example, or oh, my day job, almost invariably 7 days a week lately, but at least 6 days a week, is working with the public. I work retail. uh, Everybody in my community sees me almost every single day. You know, I know my community. My community knows me. I'm more or less a fixture in my community. I don't say that as a bragging thing. It's that I talk to everybody in my area daily. I see them going through problems, struggles. I see them having happy things. I've got a customer that's got him and his wife have a baby coming next month. um, unless something's going wrong. Pray that it's not, because I know they've been trying for a long time. Um, I've got another customer that's got heart issues, and she's a real sweet old lady. I hope that she's doing well. Last time I saw her, she was doing pretty good. She's lost a lot of weight. I'm kind of worried about her. Uh, and so on and so on. That's my purpose, as I see it, is to be there for these people, uh, not just as a person that sells them eggs and other stuff, but rather someone they can rely on and talk to if they need someone to talk to, and don't have anybody to talk to. Because I know what that's like. When I lost my mother, having already lost my dad, which was, it sucked. But there's nothing like losing your mother, especially if that is your remaining parent. That was a very dark time in my life. And all of my friends just kind of disappeared, except one. We'll talk about him at some other point. When the website gets good and rolling, which I'm going to be putting a lot of time on that today, it certainly would have helped me to have someone to talk to at that time. But the only people I could get a hold of were the drug dealers. They, they didn't want to talk about that, but they would answer the phone because there was money to be had. So I can understand that crippling sense of depression and loneliness, like suddenly you're an orphan without so much as a brother or sister to share that grief with. And I don't wish that on anybody. So I would like to be there if somebody is in a similar situation and needs somebody, which is one of the goals of God Hours, to provide that resource to people. You can reach me through the email for confidential help with something that's bothering you. Um, if I can provide the help. I mean, I'm not, a therapist or a doctor or even a preacher or thing like that. Just a guy. But I have had my share of sorrow and loss. But I pulled through it, and there is a way to be happy even if you can't see it at the time. Like, probably the most difficult thing I've ever done was get off heroin. Uh, that's no easy task. And the only way I was really able to do that was my mother was diagnosed terminal, and I knew that I could not possibly take, you know, competent care of her if I was nursing an active drug addiction, certainly not one as extreme as heroin. And I know some people think one addiction is just like any other addiction, but opioid addiction is a different animal altogether, I must say. And believe me, I've tried them all. That's the only one that really stuck. Uh, and I came upon it fairly honestly. I mean, I don't blame the doctors entirely, but they were giving me way too much pain medicine. I mean, to the point where I think I had 5 or 6 active different opioids at any one time, up to and including fentanyl. It's no surprise that I became dependent on it. And I think that's just because that's what they expected the prognosis to be, that I would probably never walk again. So why not just spend the rest of my life miserable? Well, not miserable because I was artificially euphoric with pain medicine, and but that's no kind of life. I mean, sure, it's fun for the first year. You're high as hell and playing video games, but then what are you doing? How are you making a difference? What's the purpose? When you look back at your life and say, well, I was the 6th best warlock. Wow. Is that going to be on my tombstone? You're quite a great World of Warcraft player. That's not what I want people to remember me by. Uh, and I know I've got a whole pack of cigarettes. I feel like I just had them a minute ago. But why don't we have a look outside for them? I left them in the truck. Seems likely. Knowing me. Plus, it's not good to smoke in the house. So hopefully I'll find them and smoke out here. Anyway, what else is going on? I mentioned in the description, I don't know if anybody actually read that, but I've been watching and reading some stuff about the Gospels of Thomas and Judas, as well as some stuff about John the Baptist, which is not the John from Matthew, Mark, Luke, John Gospels, but Thomas and Judas books. This is God Hour. And sure, it's been a little more than an hour, a lot more than an hour since I've gotten up, but that doesn't mean we stop thinking about God after an hour, which is the premise of God Hour, by the way. Give the first hour of each day to God. In recognition of all that he's done for me and for those close to me. All right, forget the cigarettes. I could throw out a few other minor examples of the grace and mercy that God has shown me. That's it. I know somebody's not pulling up unannounced. But recently, I cut the living stew out of my hand. I don't know if y'all want to see it, but it's early in the day. It's about 9 o'clock, I guess, which is early for me since I work all the way to 10 something each night. Um, and I severed a vein in my thumb. Thankfully, I didn't cut the tendon, but it didn't cut an artery, but I definitely cut a vein because the blood was just pulsing out. not gushing or squirting out, but just pulsing out with the heartbeat, to a point where I couldn't even control it. Took a fat roll of paper towels, and even then it was still dripping all over the porch. And to this day, there's a huge blood stain on my porch. And about that time, my neighbor calls and he's like, "What are you doing today? You want to do this and this?" And I said, "No, I want to go to the hospital. I need stitches immediately." So, "What's wrong?" He said, "You know what? I'll be right there. Don't worry about it. Tell me later." Came, picked me up, rushed me to the emergency room. They got me stitched up, even though I was bleeding on the waiting room floor for the few minutes I had to wait. But in that brief instant, God provided for me. Not only someone, but the transportation. Uh, for me to have driven myself would have been very, very dangerous. I might have passed out because I was woozy, but I would have had to somehow hold the pressure on that wound while driving in the city. Uh, so probably would have, but if I'd called an ambulance, it would have taken them at least 30, 45 minutes. So best option was to get a ride. And bam, right in my moment of need. Coincidence? Maybe. Uh, but in the words of Einstein, coincidence is merely God's way of remaining anonymous. And I do love to refer to quotes, uh, because quotes become quotes because they're timeless. They are valuable information, valuable proverbs, if you will. But not only that, later on, as my stitches and wound were healing, I went back to work the next day. Uh, 2 or 3 days into it, still a nasty wound, and my dressing needed changing on the wound. And all of a sudden, right after I observed that, I'm like, that that don't look good. I need to change these bandages and disinfect that, like, yada yada. And the very next customer, like within seconds, a nurse walked into, in her scrubs and everything, walked into the shop. Apparently, she had just gotten off work or was on her way to work, one or the other. Uh, and I apologize, ma'am, I don't mean to impose, but I kind of need medical attention, not emergency attention, but you have anything that can help with this? And she's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah. Here, let me get you some gloves and, whatnot, uh, to keep it covered and dry." And, I had some spare bandages and such, but it's like those two coincidences, right, in short order, right at the time of need. It's just a little bit too coincidental for me to say, it just happens that way. I mean, sure, coincidence happen. People win the lottery. Some people win the lottery multiple times. I haven't really been trying. In fact, in Alabama, we don't have a lottery. Go figure. Uh, the only problem is I haven't read the Gospels of Thomas and Judas. Thomas actually uh, was also a Judas, not in the sense of a betrayer, but his name was also Judas. Thomas Epididymus Judas. Uh, Epididymus is Greek for twin. And Thomas is often referred to as Thomas the Pretender, uh, or or Thomas as opposed to Thomas the Doubter. There's two Thomases there, uh, but Thomas the Pretender, uh, because his name means twin. Some, there's a lot of conjecture that I feel like it was just a joke, that he looked very similar to Jesus and was mistaken for Jesus at times. Um, and therefore, they gave him the name twin or epididymis. Thomas Epididymis Judas is his full name, apparently. Now, Judas Iscariot, on the other hand, well, obviously, he's got a very earned bad reputation, uh, yet he fulfilled the prophecy. I mean, it's hard to hold someone in contempt for doing what God made or willed. It was all going to happen. All he did was play his role, which unfortunately meant betraying Jesus. And there's a lot of controversy on why he did that. Was it just for the money? Was it something more than that? Was it, like the police? They often not beat, but they trick people into confessing or doing things, claiming they committed crimes that they didn't, by fear of there being a worse punishment. So maybe something like that was going on. Uh, some have said maybe the devil made him do it. I believe that's in one of the Gospels, actually. Uh, some believe that Judas actually was the devil, like personified, much the way that Jesus is God personified. I don't buy that. I think Judas was overall a good person. I mean, Jesus kept him with him. One could argue, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But Judas was also, if I recall correctly, the treasurer of the apostles. Like, he carried all the money that they were using to feed the hungry, and so on and so on. So Jesus apparently trusted him, because he knew he could read his soul. Jesus is divine after all, but he's also mortal at one point. I mean, it's very tricky to explain to a non-Christian, uh, but Jesus came to let, this is just me, I'm not a preacher, pastor, or anything like that. Jesus came and to show us as humans that God can understand human, you know, temptations, sensations like hunger, uh, cold, feeling cold, feeling hot, getting sick, all these things that we as mortals deal with on a daily basis, heartache, uh, friendship, uh, betrayal, uh, that some entity, God, which has the power to create at least one universe that we know of, possibly multiple universes, could possibly spend an inkling of his mind on any one person is anathema. I mean, if you're building in planets, uh, are you listening to the billions of people on one of those planets? If you're omnipotent and omniscient and omnipresent, yeah, God cares about every one of us. And it grieves God as it grieves any parent when a child loses his way, falls into the wrong crowd, or gets messing around with drugs, or gets a girl pregnant at a very young age, or rebels against the parent, or that the parent has to discipline the child. Now, in my day, that meant you got your ass beat. I don't know how they're doing it now, but uh, it was very, very effective the way my dad did it. And he only had to do it a few times and never more than once for the same offense. Um, but that's kind of the long and short of it. Uh, we needed to be able to see an example of a good person, a godly person, and also proof, in a way of speaking. I mean, today we can't because Jesus has already been crucified, but he was performing miracles and witnessing these miracles, which in the book of, gosh, is it John? I believe it's in John. And at the end of John, it says, uh, there, there's not enough room in an entire book to list the miracles Jesus performed. So the ones that we know of, the feeding of the masses, and raising Lazarus, water in the wine, all that stuff, that's just, those are just examples. I mean, and, and to this day, miracles are performed daily. I mean, you see people surviving things they probably shouldn't have been able to survive. Uh, Medical miracles, or doctors just really can't explain how someone, like, I was watching this neurosurgeon talk about uh, people that have had half of their brain removed, uh, or nearly half, a big chunks of their brain removed, and then still go on to function almost, if not literally, as if nothing ever happened. Uh, I would consider that a medical miracle. Uh, it also demonstrates how little we know about the brain. Suffice it to say, nothing is impossible for God. Uh, If you need a miracle, ask him for it. And the Lord does work in mysterious ways. You may not always grasp that he had a hand in the miracle. But that's where the faith aspect comes into play. We have to have faith. Just believing in something because you witnessed it and seen it happen in real time, that's not faith. That's just observing. It's gonna drive me nuts to find these cigarettes. It's the problem of being OCD is you tend to focus on one thing and can't stop and can't stop. But it's okay. I don't see much chat going on. I don't know if it's because the stream got messed up when that phone call tried to come through. I've seen it do that before. But now we got another, according to that little icon, I guess, which means spectator. So I guess it's functioning. That being said, the other topic I kind of wanted to touch on, I kind of don't because this is on YouTube, and you got the censorship element. It's, you know where I'm going with the Israel thing. You know what? Let's just stay clear of that. And let's just turn it over to concepts like, I'm even hesitant to bring this one up either, but yeah, it'd probably be more appropriate with better context, before jumping into what could be perceived as racist discussion. Because, I mean, I clearly look like a white guy. For the most part, that's what I am. On the other hand, I'm actually a member of a Native American tribe and clan with a C, Kippiskokie, Lower Muskogee Creek Nation. And as such, some of the teachings that I received growing up would be considered pagan by most of the Christian community, which, just because we didn't know or understand or have exposure to Christ doesn't mean that the Creeks didn't believe in a creator, and I use that word a with emphasis. One monotheist, a creator of earth who put the humans, the Indians, if you will, in charge or gave them stewardship of the earth. They weren't going around worshiping the rocks and the trees and the birds and so on, but they saw in these things evidence of a creator, and that they were, sacred in the sense that they were made by God and God trusted us to take care of them, uh, and not to just greedily tear down all the forests to make houses and sell lumber to whatever country wants lumber, or dig up all the oil and gold and everything else. So in that respect, I believe the Muskogee, that would be the Alabama Muskogee, because there's also the Oklahoma Muskogee. I believe they abided by the teachings of Genesis better than modern Christians or Jews, or any people really, because everybody is just eating up natural resources, not to try to take away any accountability. But I live off grid. Uh, I get my electricity from the sun, and but that's not to say I don't put gasoline in my truck. You know, it is what it is. You can only try and do your best, and that's really all that you have to do. No matter what your job is, if you're cooking or flipping hamburgers or building rocket ships, whatever, just do it with care and with love. Which leads us to reiteration of our verse of the day, which was, give him your cares, for he careth for you. And I believe that's going to conclude God Hour for the day. Put in 82 minutes on God Hour Live, and God Hour Short is available for your perusal. I believe I'm going to put a little time into godhour.org, our domain and website. But if you want to reach out with a prayer request or something, admin@godhour.org should work. I guess that's all I've got for the day. Tomorrow I work early. Probably won't be able to do a GHL early in the day, but I get off early. So tomorrow's one of them weird days that I have to do a weird schedule, whatever. It's not really your problems. So for Acts 22, would it be, I suppose? Well, we'll be addressing that shortly and wrapping up the book of Acts in due time. So, unless there's anything before we go, I've got all the time in the day. But if nobody has anything they want to discuss, then I will go about my day. I'll leave that up to the next few minutes of chat while I sit here and poison my body with nicotine. Mm-hmm. No, like the numbers are growing, people in channel. It's kind of weird. Like, welcome y'all. I guess if that means new people have joined. Well, look who it is. It's a Benjamin Sievers. What's going on, my brother? We had just wrapped up Acts 21, and some discussion on the apocryphal Gospel of Judas and Gospel of Thomas, which don't appear in the canonical Bible, of course. Actually, they don't even appear in the traditional apocrypha because they were only discovered in the 1940s, 1950s in Egypt, translated from Greek. But there was clearly a very short Gospel of Thomas, only about, it's like 35 sentences long. Basically, Jesus said this, next sentence, Jesus said this, Jesus said that, Jesus said this, and that's the Gospel of Thomas. I don't know why it was left out of the Bible. Now, the Gospel of Judas, we can understand why they took that out of the Bible. But on the other hand, Jesus was gathered with Judas and all 12 apostles and said, "You will sit on 12 thrones." And he would have known, Jesus knew what was to come from Judas. So Judas may still have a throne given to him. We're not given that to understand and know. It's just the way it is. You have to be satisfied with not knowing some things. It'll be revealed to us in time. Really, y'all are on Acts 21, and that's like I was saying earlier, what a coincidence. It was a very big air quote. And to put the Einstein quote in yet again, coincidence is simply God's way of remaining anonymous. Here, I'll share this one with you. How you like that bad boy? I've about got the last stitch out of it. I had 5 in it. But that was also one of the examples of coincidence that I mentioned earlier in the GHL here. Is the second, like within literally 60 seconds of splitting that gushing wound open, my neighbor called me and said, "You need anything?" Yeah, I need to go to the ER and get stitches really quick like. He said, "I'll be right there." God's timing can be perfect. All things in his time, but he knows when he's needed most. And we're at right at 90 minutes. Got hours, so to speak. But one of my few privileged days off, so I get to take as much time as I like with the Bible, and I'm going to do some web editing on godhour.org because it needs it. Anyway, good to see you, my brother. I love you, man. And thank you, everybody else, for your support and conversations, and so on and so on. If you see me at work, if you're one of those people that surprise me at work, saying, "I've been fun watching your YouTube." And I'm like, okay. It kind of embarrasses me, but it's a good embarrassment. Anyway, God bless you all, and thank you. Have a great day, and be seeing you soon. It's actually part of my uniform. But I covered the logo because you can't support Christianity with the company logo on it, or else you're going to offend somebody. But their cameras don't have audio recording, so I can just sit there and talk about anything I want to. And for the most part, 99% of my customers are Christian anyway, so that's the privilege of be living in Lower Alabama is you do have a strong Christian community, and I'm very fortunate in that respect. All right. Good day, all. Thank you. Side parted guitar. Yeah, guitar sounds fun too, but maybe after that wound heals up a little bit. I'll see y'all next time, probably tomorrow in the evening-ish, 'cause I gotta get up real early. Yeah, I've heard that one. Speaking of dinosaurs, I'm not gonna go there. I feel like I'm a dinosaur at time. Robzilla indeed. Just an ancient creature, a living fossil, if you will. No, 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 no. I'm being too hard on myself. Somehow I gotta figure out how to peel a banana with one hand. Either that or go ahead and end the stream. Thanks once again, y'all. Have a great day. Be seeing you soon. Same to you. Adios.